All right, everybody, thanks for coming this evening for the Tax Increment Financing Study Group public hearing. Before we get going, I'm just going to give a little bit of background about how the study group got to where we are today and then the ground rules for this evening. First, I want to just quickly introduce the Tax Increment Financing Study Group. We've been together since late October. All but one of us are here. One of our members, Paulette Coleman, is, I think, out of town today. We've got Richard Warren to my right, Brian Kelsey to my left, and in front of me, Talia Lomax O'Neill, Charles Robert Bone, and Bert Matthews. The basic high-level status of where we are is that the background is that the council passed some legislation in 2016 to provide more information about tax increment financing annually, and then most recently this summer when there was a proposal for a transit-oriented redevelopment district in Donaldson, which failed. It was clear that the council body was split and the measure just barely failed. And coming out of that, we reached an agreement between the council, the mayor's office, and MDHA to freeze tax increment financing through June 30th of this year to allow time for a TIF study and formulating committee, our group, to study the topic, learn, and make recommendations. So we've been at this since late October. We've met 9 times before today. We've listened to, I think, about 12.5 witnesses and panelists on a variety of topics. For the study part of our group, of our meetings, our plan was to come at it from the perspective of TIF is a complicated topic, and not that many people see all the perspectives of it. There's the perspective of the city, the taxpayer. There's the perspective of a lender making a loan, of MDHA and its goals, of developers, and again, the community generally. And so we, for most of these meetings we've had, we had a theme for the meeting, and in the online materials that I'll tell you where to find in a second, we've captured the agendas and the minutes and everybody we've talked to, but we tried to hear from the perspective of affordable housing developers, private developers, small, medium, and large. We've learned about the technical legal framework of what's allowed and not allowed to be done with tax increment financing. We've talked to representatives of MDHA. We've talked to bankers who make tax increment financing loans and the things they're interested in. And I think one of the things that as a group we've all commented on is that we all feel like the several months of learning has been really valuable to give us a level of understanding of all the facets of tax increment financing. And I think all of us felt like we knew a fair amount to begin with about the topic, and we all are left thinking that we know a lot more than we started with. Now we're moving on to the formulating part of studying and formulating, and the last piece of study is to hear from the public, which is what we're having happen today. One thing that I want to share before we get to the ground rules is, so we're really proud of the fact that we think we've compiled as complete a set of information about tax increment financing as any city anywhere. If you go online to Metro's website where they list boards and commissions and go to the Tax Increment Financing Study and Formulating Group, there's a link we have to the TIF document library where we've got really, again, just an unprecedented amount of information about tax increment financing. Mr. Warren here is going to have to turn his sound off, I think. And everybody's welcome to see that. That portal, that website for the study group also has a link where people can email us questions and comments. And so if somebody's watching this on video or any of you have a comment after we're done here today, feel free to hit the website and leave us the comment. We're required to come up with a report by the end of April. We think we're on track. We've got a lot of work to do, but we're more or less on track for that. And I know a lot of my council colleagues want to see that so we can get whatever legislation we need to do done before the end of the term at the end of the summer. So with that, the ground rules are we're here to listen to the public, and we want to know what you like, dislike about tax increment financing, changes you suggest, perspectives that you think we might not have heard yet, perspectives that we have heard but you want to underscore. And we're going to have everybody come up to the microphone, and it's going to be a 3-minute time period, and there's going to be a little timer on the board so you know how long you've got left. And everybody doesn't need to stand up and get in a line, but maybe if there could be a couple people queued up so we don't, just out of respect for everybody's time, we'll get through it faster if folks are lined up a little bit. So with that, I know a lot of council hearings, there's a for side and an against side. This isn't really one of those. However you feel about it, come on up and tell us what you think. And if you could start by stating your name, your address, and if you're affiliated with an organization, go ahead and tell us what that organization is. All right, let's go. Who's up first?
Good evening. My name is Jorge Metz. My address is 2618 Forest View Drive in Antioch. It was only because of my former council person, Karen Johnson, that I found out about this meeting. And in doing some research, I'm concerned. I actually read a book that was written by Nicholas Griefer, and it's about an elected official's guide to the increment financing. And there were several issues and things that weren't good about this program. And he even stated in California, where it was first started in 1952, it has been stopped because of all the lawsuits that have happened. And even though they say that there's an indirect tax to the public, it really does end up being taxable to the people because of the way this tax thing works, where the property that goes under the TIF the taxes aren't paid to the coffer, it actually goes to the pay off the TIF. Is that not correct?
You're right that tax increment is used to pay loans for a certain amount of time until they're paid off.
And so what happens to that money that doesn't go to the payoff or to go to schools and other issues? Doesn't the tax rate have to be increased to cover that loss?
Well, I think that's a matter of some question, and I would encourage you to take a look at the website we have with the document library, because there's a lot of general information that would address these questions.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jason Freeman. I work with SEIU Local 205, representing employees of Metro Government, Metro Public Schools, and Nashville General Hospital. When it comes to tax increment financing in Davidson County, there's a couple of things, or moving forward, there's a few things we think we should consider. First is that tax increment financing was originally conceived as a way to entice development in blighted areas. The idea was to use the incentive to build parks, to build green space, sidewalks, or other public goods that would make an area more desirable for developers. But in Nashville, it seems we generally use TIF to subsidize construction loans on projects. The city should focus on how to deliver public goods with tax increment financing, not to build a few extra floors on a high-rise that's already being built. Second, in Nashville, tax increment financing has been used on a project-by-project basis, meaning that the increment only comes from a single property. There was an effort to change this process to a large district that freezes property tax revenue from, say, a 30-square-mile area for 30 years. And this also creates a silo of funding that really feels a little bit like an end run around the capital improvements budget for projects only in that area. That becomes especially concerning when we're talking about replicating those districts around the city. The project model puts less of our future revenues at risk, and it gives the council better oversight. TIF projects should, whenever possible, require council approval. We don't think the council should ever give away its oversight on 30 years of property tax revenue for large sections of the city under any circumstance. Third, the city of Nashville has a chronically underfunded school system. Their scarce resources have been strained by tax increment financing. Metro Schools is required to receive a portion of the property tax revenue that comes into the city, and until our investment in education matches our investment in tourism, we should not promise away $1 of future revenue that is allocated for our schools. If we continue to use tax increment financing, we should only apply to the remaining increment after the schools get their funding. Finally, in the current moment, the property tax revenues are at an arbitrarily low amount. This is a result of the council and the mayor in 2017 adopting the lowest property tax rate in the history of consolidated government. Promising away future tax revenues from the current baseline would be irresponsible. The city is continuing to grow at a rapid pace, bringing into the question the need for these types of incentives in the first place, but our infrastructure is not growing. Needed investments are not being made in our city, and we would argue that the focus of this council should be on fixing the current revenue shortage before promising any future revenues away. There's currently a voluntary freeze on tax increment financing until this committee makes its recommendations, and we think that this freeze should continue and that no tax increment financing agreement should be considered until the council and the mayor's office have restored the proper property tax rate to a normal level. So thank you for taking this input, and thank you for your work.
Thanks a lot.
Hello, my name is Ann Barnett. I live at 618 Larchwood Drive, and I am one of the co-chairs of Stand Up Nashville. A little over a year ago, Stand Up Nashville helped to draft and advocate for the Do Better bill, which is now the Do Better law, which applies to pilot agreements and cash grants that the city gives out in forms of incentives, which, you know, the council folks will remember last night having this debate. And the Do Better law requires more transparency when corporations are applying for pilots or cash grants, including the types and number of jobs, not just a roundabout number, but how many jobs in each category, what wages those jobs are going to pay by category, a projection for how many Davidson County residents will be hired by this project, as well as histories of the company in terms of have they violated wage and hour laws? Have they had serious occupational health and safety issues on their job sites? Those sorts of things. And so we worked with council to put together that law so that the council could make a more informed decision when voting to give away the city's money. And so we would like to advocate that those similar transparency requirements be added to TIF deals. We just want to make sure that we're doing the best by Nashvillians, and we believe that by applying those same transparency measures, it would help make better decisions. But that's just a first step, right? One of the problems that we have with the way that these deals get put together in the first place is oftentimes it's a representative from the mayor's office and the Chamber of Commerce, and there's not a community input in when these deals are getting put together. And so we'd like to see how the community can be more involved in economic development in general. And we'd love to work with the council to flesh out more ideas, either on Do Better or on having better community input when TIF deals and other deals get put together. Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Good evening. My name is Eric Huth. I'm the president of the Metropolitan Nashville Education Association. Jason has made many of the most important points here this evening about how TIF diverts money from our schools. I want to remind you that Nashville has a large urban school district that is chronically underfunded, and while your TIF incentives do incentivize development and have changed downtown perhaps for the better, this has placed some economic stresses upon our schools. We've had issues where communities are being displaced. We don't have adequate resources in our schools. Many of our textbooks are 10 and 12 years old. And I like to tell people that at some point in the future, Barack Obama will have been president in our social studies textbooks, but to this date, that is not possible because we just simply do not have the funding. So Nashville needs to look at the big picture and not just look at building shiny monuments and helping developers build up downtown. We need to look at the rest of our community. We need to look at the needs of our government as a whole and look at the needs of our schools and our students. So I encourage you to make sure that you stop diverting TIF money from our schools because we do need textbooks. We do need to pay a living wage to our employees so that we can fill every classroom, so that we can fill every bus with a school bus driver. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
My name is Amanda Kail. I live at 605 Rudolph Avenue. And like many of the other people here who have spoken, I would like to speak about schools. I am a member of MNEA. I'm also the founder of Nashville Red for Ed. And we are a grassroots teacher network who is really trying to advocate for funding in our schools. And we're very concerned about the TIF funding. At my school, I have been there for 5 years, and I can count on one hand the number of other teachers in my school who have been there that long. We're not retaining teachers. If you don't retain teachers, you will not see academic achievement improve. You will not see student discipline improve. You won't see anything improve. We have had our wages largely frozen for more than a decade, and that is not a way to attract or retain highly qualified individuals who will do the work that needs to be done in our schools. I urge this council to really think about how TIF is impacting our schools, particularly our teachers. We have sacrificed for, like I said, well over a decade. Many of us buy supplies out of our own paychecks, but it is getting to the point of breaking. And so please consider as you go forward how those decisions will be impacting funding the schools and particularly funding the people who work there, because you need us to make our schools work. Thank you.
Thanks, Ms. Kail.
Hi, I'm Grace Renshaw. I live in Cherokee Park. I favor mass transit, so I want to be clear that my vote against last spring's referendum was not influenced by the Koch brothers. I voted against that plan because it required people who could least afford it to pay for transit through sales taxes. I also opposed the use of tax increment financing to achieve the housing density required to support light rail. In fact, the push for transit-oriented development told me something I hadn't understood before, that Nashville lacks the density along major corridors to support that proposed plan. So Metro is basically asking voters to incentivize developers to do what they were already doing at a furious pace on Charlotte and Gallatin and other corridors. That's a huge ask when we need tax dollars to support our schools and pay teachers and firefighters and police enough so that they can afford to live here. Finally, Metro tried to sell a transit plan to voters without clarifying that we currently lack the density to make the plan viable. This lack of transparency happened against a backdrop of deals between the city and developers that provoked a public backlash. The no-bid deal to trade a park to a developer who brags that Church Street is his sandbox is just the latest example. It's also a bad idea to sell parks at the same time you're promoting dense development that means lots of people don't have yards. People are tired of paying dearly, both in terms of money and quality of life, for deals that mostly seem to benefit others. For many Nashvillians, the transit plan was that kind of deal. It's hard to hear that we need to shell out fat subsidies when housing has become unaffordable for people who earn $50,000 a year. And while most people are paying higher property taxes, that we have to give tax incentives, but, we have to sell parks and other properties and force underpaid teachers to buy their own supplies to fix the budget shortfall. On this task force website, which Bob mentioned, you posted a report from last year on transit-oriented districts that repeatedly emphasizes the importance of affordable housing. Then the report recommends that TODs have, and here's a drum roll, at least 20% affordable housing. Does that mean that 80% of the development subsidized through TIFs could be unaffordable? How is affordable defined? A tax scheme where only 20% of development has to be quote-unquote affordable, people don't really know how affordable is defined, and where they are subsidizing 100% of the development should lose big, and it did. Please use tax increment financing only for its intended purpose, to attract investment to blighted areas, and not to lure developers to do what they were doing already. Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Hello. My name is Lynn Hoyt. I live at 160 Haverford. I'm the Vice President of the Hume-Fogg PTO and Executive Board Member of the Bordeaux North Nashville Community PTA. And I'm just here to represent many working parents that cannot be here tonight to speak against TIF and asking for your help in fixing this. My children, specifically my 8th grader Megs, has that textbook where George W. Bush is seen as the president. Our teachers need to be paid. Our students need books. And TIF needs to be fixed. And I'm just here for the record as a public school parent to ask and to thank you for this study.
Thanks a lot for being here.
Good evening, Michelle Gaskin Brown from the Nashville Area Chamber of Commerce. First of all, I want to thank the committee and council for calling this public hearing and welcoming input from all perspectives. Right now, our city has 3 economic development incentive tools, and there's been a lot of discussion about transparency, but also what kind of public goals and benefits we're trying to achieve with these initiatives. From the Chamber's perspective, we are interested in tax increment finance to create economic prosperity as well as opportunity, such as when it was created historic preservation and residential development on Church Street. More recently, due to 2017 state law, TIF can be used to provide some public benefits to create affordable housing and support transit-oriented development, which gives more people opportunities to move around our region as well as get to jobs and education. We applaud this conversation about incentives and their public benefits. We want to see a tool that is used to reach these commonly agreed to public benefit goals, but we don't want to see the tools diminished when we can use it for new goals. Again, for transit-oriented development and affordable housing, excuse me. Thank you. We look forward to the continued conversations.
Thanks.
Hello, I'm Alan Arnder, live at 2903 Woodlawn Drive, and here representing kind of 2 hats today, one with NAIOP, our commercial real estate organization, and also as a developer in town that has been through projects that have benefited from TIF, although not receiving it directly, and some that have not worked because we did not get it. Generally, our industry relies on TIF as a tool to get projects going in areas of town that rents can't support the new construction or things like that, and so it's a catalyst to get new projects going. So the big projects make the news, but a lot of the smaller projects are what really start and get the fabric of the communities going. Speaking personally, in Germantown, we have several projects in Germantown that did not receive TIF, but we came in after several projects did receive and provided the opportunity for us to come in. And so these projects that we did and added value, that increment did come right back to the city. So because of the initial TIF projects that that happened allowed us to come in, create new projects that revenue did come to the city. In addition, we were part of the team that worked on the Donaldson Transit-Oriented Development TIF and working with RTA and brought Penrose in to look at that project. The short summary of that is that to make that project work, we were going to have to replace the parking for the RTA site as well as provide parking for this apartment project. That equated to about a 600-car parking garage to be built as part of the project. That is the perfect application for TIF. These were going to be, by all measures, affordable workforce-type apartment units, but it needed the support of a TIF to get the parking garage, get that structure going so that the project could be delivered. So I think I think the committee, this is a great effort with this committee to really peel back all these layers, take a look, see how we can use this tool effectively. Our organization, we're certainly supportive of the changes that make this more transparent, make it more available to people that have ideas and can do these projects. So it's a great effort. We hope to see good things come from it. And the one concern is that if we try to peel back layers of the increment and earmark those for other things, it's going to reduce the amount that's available for projects, and it's going to particularly harm smaller projects. A lot of those projects are the ones I talked about in Germantown that really got to the point of making future projects feasible. So thanks for your work.
Thank you very much.
Good evening. My name is Michael Kenner. I live at 5513 Morrow Road here in Nashville, Tennessee. I was one of the panelists that came in and spoke about TIF with these fine gentlemen. And I just want to say I agree with a lot of the grassroots organizers that are in this room that TIF essentially in Nashville has been broken. And our system of administering TIF in Nashville has not been transparent, up to date. And I think that TIF is a tool that could be used and could be leveraged in the proper ways. And I've been studying TIF all over the state of Tennessee. I'm currently doing some projects in Chattanooga. We're looking at projects in Memphis as well. And there's other ways that TIF is applied. There's some other instruments to apply TIF that I think that Nashville has just pretty much missed and hasn't looked at. TIF can be applied through our Industrial Development Board, and it can be done project by project, where the IDB goes out and takes a specific loan out, and then it's earmarked a percentage of the payback. And so if it's a 20-year pay period, only 60% of the amount of property tax needs to go to pay back that specific TIF loan, and you can allocate 40% to education. There is a win-win there for everyone. But we're not looking at creative ways to do this. We're just trying to figure out how to fix a broken system that we already all agree on doesn't work. And so I think that looking at pilots, looking at creative tax programs that won't take money out of the general fund, that will allocate money equally and distribute it amongst education and amongst affordable housing are things that we need to look at. I think that making sure that TIF is only applied when you can use it for public benefit or for affordable housing, and that it has teeth. If you look at the last time TIF was applied for affordable housing, I do believe in the Gulch, for market rate and for a mixed income community, it had a deed restriction of 5 years. After 5 years, all those deed restrictions burned off, and everyone who had one sold one and captured all of the equity. Currently, under the Barnes Fund, we're doing deed restrictions of, I do believe, 20 to 30 years. You know, those deed restrictions have teeth, and they maintain affordability. So unless we're going to implement TIF in a way that's regulated, that's defined, and that's transparent, which the IDB allows us to do because there's a public hearing after it's approved, because there's so many different outlets and revenues to be able to vet this, because there has to be a nexus proven of financial incentive to the city if you go through the IDB. I think that there's a lot of different ways that we can implement TIF, and I don't think TIF has to be as nasty of a word as it's become, but I think that we need to reestablish and rework the way that we're going to go about this, and not just continue to try and jam everyone's opinions into one essential whole of MDHA and TIF, but to broaden the spectrum of TIF and how it can be applied and how tax incentives such as pilot programs can be applied. I think that's going to be the key to figuring out Nashville's affordable housing crisis. You know, they always talk about there's no one silver bullet. Well, there's no one silver TIF. You know, TIF through MDHA is one way, but the state has multiple ways to apply it. And if we don't start looking at those aggressively, our affordable housing crisis is just going to keep compounding over and over and over again.
Thanks a lot, Mr. Kenner.
My name is Suzy Reese. I live at 3506 Richland Avenue, and I'm a member of the Affordable Housing Task Force of NOAA. What's already been said about TIF being used for affordable housing, I just want to echo and say that we know the city used to use it. We don't understand the criteria for not using it now. And as others have said, affordable housing is an issue of education, health, and economic development in Nashville. And I think that it is very deserving of TIF funding. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hi, I'm Phil Manns. I live at 905 Phillips. I have the challenge of succeeding Paulette Coleman as the chair of NOAA's Affordable Housing Task Force. Paulette could not be here. She's working, I believe, in Memphis, perhaps driving back as we speak. Her comments throughout the process, I just want to echo what's already in the record. So at the very first meeting, she asked for public comment. So thank you very much for doing that here tonight. She was pretty clear about how do we measure the metrics of increases by individual parcel and try to go to project by project. She was strong about hoping that there'd be actual recommendations coming out of this process. She raised the question, if you need TIF to do a project, should the project still be done? I guess the issue here is how much borrowing are we going to do? And if you can't meet some of the basic needs that were articulated earlier, why are we borrowing more money to try to get something done? She strongly suggested a periodic review of the tax increment districts. She noted that there's often a challenge between affordable housing and development, and I think part of the challenge there is just getting clear metrics about who's going to benefit from the housing, who's going to benefit from the development. And just to back up a moment, NOAA consists of closing in on 70 faith-based organizations, labor unions, and other civic groups. And when we work with our members to try to explain what TIF is, we try to say, well, it's sort of borrowing. But then you get into all the various explanations and the deviations and the exceptions, and it gets really hard for the average person to understand what's going on. So I think if you had clear metrics about who's going to get housed and how the development is going to occur, that would be very helpful. When I did talk to her on Friday, her number one thing was that there ought to be a level playing field for everyone participating in the TIF program. And then I just have to note today that the mayor's message came out saying that property taxes alone on Amazon's building are expected to pay for the job-based incentives I'm proposing within just a few years. So that confuses things even more because it sounds like job increment financing, using the property taxes from a specific place to pay for the job incentives for the people at that place. That just kind of adds to the ongoing confusion the general public has about what's being financed, how, and who's going to benefit from it. So I think that's the general feeling of our task force members, in addition to what Suzy shared and any members might share going forward. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Mr. Manson.
Hi, Manuel Zeitlin, architect, 1919 Linden Avenue. I've been the architect for a couple of TIF projects, and I'm pretty confused. So everybody, you guys must be fairly confused. I think I don't disagree necessarily with anything anybody said. Affordable housing is incredibly important. Transportation is incredibly important. But my understanding of tax increment financing is that it's a way to greatly increase the tax revenues for the city from non-producing properties. One of the projects we worked on was the Castronaut building, probably 25 years or so ago, and Church Street was dead. It was struggling. Castronaut building had been empty for years. They couldn't get anybody to look at it. And with tax increment financing, they were able to take a building that's probably producing a few $1,000s a year in tax revenue for the city and turn it into one that there's no telling probably how many millions of dollars of tax revenue is produced since that project was done. And that tax revenue is what pays for schools and affordable housing and other things. So Another project we did was we were involved in the Gulch early on. I remember going up on a roof of a building and my client said, look out and what do you see? And it was all vacant land. I can't imagine the amount of revenue that that project now is providing to the city now that probably the TIF dollars have burned off, the loans have burned off. We're currently looking at a project in East Nashville that is producing $27,000 a year in tax revenue for the city. When that project's done, it will produce over $1 million of revenue for the city. It's in a area that is underserved and has a lot of needs that it will help provide a strong amount of affordable housing as part of that project. And I think that should be a requirement. But I think the understanding needs to be that these projects, this tool gives us a way to create a huge amount of revenue for the city where there was almost none to start with. The other important thing I'm not hearing about is that the TIF is not a loan from the city. It's basically a vehicle to use the developer's own tax dollars to pay off the loan that they get from a bank. And the city basically coordinates that loan, that transaction taking place, but you're taking my understanding is the developer or property owner writes a check to the Metro tax assessor for their tax payment that year, then they take those tax dollars and use that to pay off the loan. So it's the tax payment that's paying off the loan. It's not any money coming out of the city's coffers that's being diverted from some other use. So it seems like a very positive, very creative way to achieve a lot of the goals that everybody here has been talking about. Thanks.
Thanks a lot.
Good evening. My name is David Plummer. I live at 2507 Fairfax. I just want to touch on 4 points that you're probably mostly aware of regarding benefits of TIF. TIF has not always, Nashville has a rich history that can be told through some of our buildings and structures. TIF has allowed some of Nashville's historic fabric and heritage to remain in place with funds used toward their rehabilitation or restoration. Without this, many buildings that contribute to the character of our city would likely not remain. The Ryman Auditorium, the Hermitage Hotel, the Trolley Barns, a large portion of the 300 block of Broadway, the Crest Building, which played a major role in the civil rights movement in Nashville, the Ambrose Building, which housed one of the printers that gave Printers Alley its name. All of these buildings are here today because of TIF allowing their restoration at a time when the regular economics of development would not have supported it. Affordability. There's a lot of discussion about affordable housing in our city and ways to integrate more as we grow. TIF can be used to offset costs like land acquisition or infrastructure, which reduce the overall cost of a project and make some of these affordable housing projects more affordable. Places like Laurel House in the Gulch that Manuel mentioned, where the housing fund resides right now, would not be able to maintain the long-term rent levels they do if TIF hadn't have existed in 2001. Many of us who lived here for years remember that downtown was not always a place where we would go, certainly not after dark. A 2003 Downtown Living Initiative created by the Civic Design Center, the Mayor's Office, the Downtown Partnership, MDHA, and the Planning Department noted that in informal field studies, there were 84 buildings with vacant upper floors, equating to about 600,000 square feet of vacant space in downtown about 15 years ago. That's obviously no longer the case, which increases property values, which increases property tax income for the city. It's now a bustling place where people live and work, and without the use of TIF to fund projects like the Cumberland in '96, Benny Dillon Lofts in '98, or Worthen Lofts in 2003, much of this rebirth would not have occurred or would not have occurred when it did. And finally, public green space. TIF can be used to create urban green spaces. The former thermal plant, where they burned all of our waste, many of us remember that. That's now Ascend Amphitheater with a park and a greenway. The Walk of Fame Park across the street from the Country Music Hall of Fame, also public green space, celebrating the music and history of Nashville, all made possible because of TIF. I think it's a very, very useful tool for the government to steer policy and projects that can help generate future economic activity. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Steve Rader, South Nashville. Just want to say, here's the problem with TIF. That is, if you're a homeowner, let's say you're in a blighted area, and you say, geez, I'd like to go fix up my place. Wouldn't it be nice to go out to take a construction loan and use the property taxes that I'm going to pay off my construction loan? That sounds like a pretty good deal. You know, because you're talking about, oh, well, this revenue that the city's going to get. They're not getting it. The increase in the property tax, that increment, is going to pay off that construction loan. That's where it's going for. So if you take out a 20-year loan and you fix up your place, it's free money, essentially, because basically you're going to get that back in your equity. TIF has the major problem because to go out and to do a TIF project, it has to be a big project because to go out to get the lawyers and everything together, it's going to cost you a lot of money. So the projects that you see are all big projects. The little guy can't compete in that. So you see over at 5th and Broadway, $25 million in TIF. $25 million. Look at all these other projects. You just add them up. They're all big. Big developers know how to play the game. And the other people go out there and say, oh, I'll go out and build something and I don't get any economic incentives. You're being kind of foolish. And there are lawyers around town here that specialize in economic development. That's what they do. Their whole practice is on that. The chamber works really closely with them. And we have a contract. We pay the chamber to go out and do these deals on our behalf. So we need some reform. And if you're not going to reform it, then I suggest everybody who has a piece of property that they want to fix up, say, expand TIF loan, get the state law so I can go out and fix up my place, and I'll use the money that my increased property taxes to go off and pay the construction loan. Make it a fair deal. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Rader. Now, I know there's some other folks out there with opinions. This is your chance to share them. Anyone? Any takers? I know there, again, I know there's some folks out there with opinions on this. All right. If nobody else has a comment, I want to offer my council colleagues a chance to share your thoughts with the TIF study group. You don't have to, but if you want to, now's the time for that too. All right. Councilmember Allen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm not sure what this looks like, but I know that as I have worked on affordable housing issues for the last 4 years, I've had a number of builders come to me and say, we simply can't make this work in today's market. We need some kinds of incentives. Can you provide us with those? And I don't have a total understanding of how TIF can be used specifically for affordable housing, but it's certainly a huge need in this city. And if there's a way to use some of the recommendations that have been made here and probably some of the things that y'all have talked about, that to me seems like a very appropriate use. That's a clear public good that we're in huge need of. And I think the biggest issue is, my understanding is that generally the length of the TIF loan lines up with the length of how long the affordability lasts. And I think as was mentioned, we had some in the Gulch that the TIF loan lasted for 5 years, and so the affordability lasted for 5 years. I mean, I'm hopeful that we can at least hang on to the tools that could provide some 20 and 30-year affordable housing.
Thank you. Anybody else? All right, not seeing anybody else, then I want to thank everybody who came today, and I want to remind the public on the study group's webpage, there's a link to submit a comment by email, and there's our library of materials, and our next meeting is going to be on March 6th over at Lindsley Hall, or I'm sorry, March 8th at 1 o'clock in Lindsley Hall on the Fulton campus, and we're going to transition to figuring out where the common ground is and what our report looks like. So again, thanks to the study group, thanks everybody for coming today, and we'll be adjourned.
This has been a service of the Metro Nashville Network. If you would like to see this presentation again, or for more information about this and other programs, visit nashville.org.